Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, where the undead come alive. If you're a fan of spine-chilling tales, heart-racing suspense, and thrilling zombie survival stories, then you're in the right place. Here, we dive into the terrifying world of zombies, stories filled with horror, mystery, and intense action that will leave you on the edge of your seat. From post-apocalyptic nightmares to zombie-infested cities, each tale will pull you deeper into a world where the undead rule, and survival is everything. So, if you're ready to explore these dark, twisted stories, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, like, share, and smash that notification bell so you never miss a chilling new episode. Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, where every story brings the dead to life.
The circus was in town, as it had been for the last 100 years. Bright lights flickered in the distance as tents, large and small, dotted the horizon. The Ferris wheel spun slowly against the twilight, its lights shimmering against the encroaching darkness. The scent of popcorn and cotton candy lingered in the air, accompanied by the faint sounds of laughter and the screeches of thrill rides. The sign on the main tent read, Cirque de Phantoms, but the locals had come to know it as the /Ghost Circus /. It wasn't just a place of entertainment. It was steeped in mystery, legend, and unease. Ever since the traveling show began, rumors followed. Some said the circus never stayed too long in one place. Some whispered that it left behind nothing but destruction. But those were just stories. The truth was something much darker. Inside the main tent, under the striped canopy of red and white, the performers prepared for the night's final act. Karina, the trapeze artist, was stretching her limbs, while Rocco, the strongman, polished the barbell. The ringmaster, Victor, walked with his cane, a top hat perched on his head, exuding the confidence of someone who had done this routine for decades. Tonight, however, something was different. Backstage, an animal handler named Griggs was struggling with an issue far bigger than unruly animals. It began when one of the lions, normally docile, attacked a handler unprovoked. The wounds were deep, and the handler's screams echoed through the quiet evening. Griggs rushed to the scene, only to find the lion's eyes wild, more feral than he had ever seen. The blood dripping from its claws wasn't just from hunger. It was something darker, more unnatural. The handler had been taken away to the medical tent, his flesh torn and feverish. But when the circus's doctor, a tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes, tried to tend to him, something horrifying happened. The handler awoke, eyes clouded with a milky glaze, his movements jerky and unnatural. He bit the doctor's arm, and within minutes, the infection spread. Griggs, watching from behind a crate, knew something was terribly wrong. This wasn't just rabies or some illness. It was something far worse. He had heard tales of the undead, whispered in hushed voices around campfires, but he never imagined it would come for them. Victor needs to know about this, Griggs muttered, backing away slowly as the infected handler groaned and reached out toward the other workers. But by then, it was too late. The infection had already begun to spread. Victor watched as the audience began to file into the big top, unaware of the creeping terror that was slowly spreading backstage. The applause and cheers were routine, filling the space with an energy that always made his heart race. He thrived on it, the attention, the power. He lived for this moment, commanding the show, standing at the center of the circus universe. But tonight felt different. Something gnawed at him, an unease he couldn't quite place. Karina approached him, her tightrope shoes clicking lightly on the dirt. The lions, they're acting strange. Something's off tonight. Victor scoffed, brushing it off. It's the excitement of the show, my dear. Animals can sense it. Don't worry about them. Focus on your performance. Before she could respond, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the far end of the tent. The audience stirred, but Victor raised his cane, calming them. Part of the show, folks. Just part of the show. But it wasn't part of the show. Griggs came rushing in, breathless, eyes wide. "Victor, we have a problem." "What is it now? Another lion got loose?" "It's not the lions," Griggs said, grabbing Victor's arm. "It's something worse. The handler. He turned into something." Victor yanked his arm away. "What are you babbling about?" Griggs didn't have time to explain. Behind him, a commotion erupted as several circus performers, now infected, staggered into the main tent, their faces contorted into grotesque masks of hunger. The audience gasped, believing it was all part of the act. That illusion quickly shattered when one of the performers lunged at a child in the front row, teeth sinking into flesh. The tent exploded into chaos. Screams filled the air as the audience scrambled to escape the tent, but the exits were blocked by more of the infected, their movements unnatural, their eyes clouded and hungry. The circus workers, caught off guard, struggled to contain the outbreak, but it was clear the infection was spreading too fast. It wasn't long before the once thriving circus turned into a living nightmare. Victor, realizing the gravity of the situation, shouted orders to his remaining staff. Barricade the exits. Keep them away from the crowd. But it was useless. The infected moved with frightening speed, tearing through flesh and leaving chaos in their wake. Karina swung down from her trapeze, grabbing a rope to pull herself away from the creatures below, while Rocco, the strong man, grabbed a barbell and began smashing heads, trying to slow the spread. Griggs, meanwhile, had grabbed a weapon of his own, a tranquilizer gun used for the lions. He fired at the advancing infected, but the darts had little effect. "It's not working," he shouted. Victor's eyes darted around the tent, searching for a solution. "The fire rings," he shouted. "Use the fire. It's our only chance." The fire breathers, still shaken, grabbed their torches and began lighting up the perimeter of the tent. The infected recoiled, but it wasn't enough. The flames kept them at bay, but they were relentless, and the numbers kept growing. Outside the tent, the infection spread through the carnival grounds, turning once happy families into ravenous, flesh-hungry monsters. The Ferris wheel, once a beacon of joy, now stood as a monument to the carnage, blood dripping from its seats. The carnival rides creaked eerily in the distance, as screams echoed through the night. Griggs led a small group of survivors, including Karina, Rocco, and a few others, to the back of the circus grounds. "We need to get out of here before we all end up like them." Victor, stubborn as ever, refused to leave his circus behind. "We can still save this. We can turn it around. It's all part of the spectacle." "You're insane," Karina shouted. "This isn't a show anymore. It's a massacre." But Victor's mind was made up. He would die with his circus if necessary. "This is my life's work. I'm not abandoning it." Griggs shook his head. "Then you're a fool." As the group made their way through the grounds, avoiding the infected at every turn, they realized just how far the outbreak had spread. The entire town was being overrun. The infection was not contained within the circus. It had seeped into the surrounding areas, and soon, the world outside the carnival grounds would know the same horror. Victor stood alone in the center of the main tent, the firelight flickering around him. The infected closed in from all sides, their groans growing louder. In his final moments, he realized the truth. There was no saving his circus. There was no turning this around. With a deep breath, Victor raised his cane, the symbol of his authority, and faced the oncoming horde. "Ladies and gentlemen," he whispered to the empty stands, "welcome to the final act." And then, with a sickening thud, the infected consumed him. Outside the grounds, Griggs and the remaining survivors watched as the circus tent went up in flames. The infected were trapped inside, their screams piercing the night. But Griggs knew it wasn't over. The infection had already spread, and soon, the world would face the same nightmare they had barely escaped. As they walked away from the burning circus, Karina turned to Griggs. "Do you think anyone will believe what happened here?" Griggs shook his head. "No, but they'll know soon enough." The group continued into the darkness, leaving behind the smoldering ruins of the Cirque de Phantoms. Behind them, the Ferris wheel creaked, and the once vibrant carnival grounds lay silent, consumed by the horrors of the undead. But the infection was far from over.